Now I will explain you the concept of method overloading. So what is method overloading? Method overloading basically means to implement different functionalities for the same method name in the same class. Method overloading always take place in the same class, not in different class, right? So there are some rules which we need to consider in order to overload the method. First rule is like its signature must be different. The signature is different only and only when there is like change in the number of arguments or the type of arguments. And note, return type is not a part of method signature, right? This will be better if I will explain you with the example. Like here, addition, right? If there is one method that is addition, right? If I will do addition of two numbers, let me do addition of two numbers, int a, int b, right? So a plus b, right? It will do addition of two numbers. Now if we want to do addition of three numbers, then just what if we won't have this method overloading concept, then we have to do is we just need to change this method name and this parameter, right? So like we are having two different method name, right? Addition one, that doesn't make sense. That's why there come a need to introduce method overloading concept. With the method overloading concept, we just need to consider the same name. Right now here also addition, it is doing addition of two numbers. Here there is same name and it is doing addition of three numbers, right? So with the same name we are implementing different functionalities, right? In order to overload a method, we need to consider two things in mind. First one is signature must be different. Signature will be a different only when the number of arguments is different. Note here we are having only two number of arguments and here we are having three number of arguments. So number of arguments must be different in order to overload method. And second is like either number of arguments is different or types of parameters is different, right? Look, if I will, what I will do is I'm just copy pasting this method and it will throw compile time error like duplicate method, right? So what I will do is I will just change its type, right? Here first type is like int and here it's string, so these are different, so it will overload this method. The second thing is like let me conclude first of all signature, right? Signature consists of first is first one is like it consists number of arguments, right? And the second is type of parameter type can be different, right? And also note that return type is not a part of signature. That doesn't mean like if we are having the same this number of argument and all and I will just change this thing return type, that doesn't mean we can overload that method. We can't overload this method, right? Because return type is not a part of this signature. So also one more point, like if I will throw some exception over here, then you don't think that we can overload that method. We can't overload that method because in order to overload method we need to change its signature, and signature needs to deal with only this part, you can say this input part, right? Either number of parameters are different, number of arguments are different, or types of parameters should be different, right? I think this method overloading concept is clear to you. Let me go to this slide. I think I have covered, yes, I covered these concepts, right? So now I will go to method overriding, right? What is method overriding? Method overriding is a concept to override a method, means change its implementation. Like suppose in other class which is like first of all, let me tell you, this always happen in subclass superclass relation, and we must implement inheritance concept in this. Only then method overriding can be happen, right? It must happen in two different classes: overridden method in superclass and overriding method in subclass. Okay. Now, what is method overriding? It's a way to change the implementation of a method in the subclass, right? Suppose in superclass we are having some method, we can change its implementation according to us in subclass, right? So let me explain you this with example. This I have created earlier, so let us forget this. Okay, okay. Let me change it to void. Okay. Now, if you'll see here, there is one method, uh, number of employees, right? Here it is like minimum of 5 employees, minimum 5 employees, something like that, whatever you can write, right? Suppose in this class, if I want to change its implementation, right? So I can easily change with overriding concept. For now, forget about this override annotation. What I will just simply do is just override this XYZ past technology. Okay, past technology 5 10 employees. Mhm. So what I will do is, from the main I will just create object of past technology and just call this number of employees. So for now it will uh, show 10 employees, right? It will show this method, not inherited method, not this method, right? It will show new implementation which is in subclass. So there are some rules which we have to follow in order to override a method. Let us go by slide. So first rule is method signature of overridden method and overriding method must be same. So I already explained you what consists of method signature: number of arguments or type of parameter, right? This consists of method signature, so that must be same. Suppose in IT company we are having no arguments, right? So and in past technology, what I will do is I will change this argument. So this is not overridden method, but here it seems like this name is and this name is same, and we will think that this is overridden method, but actually it is not overridden method. So there is one annotation that is provided to us, that is override annotation. We can just put override annotation above this method name, and it will make sure that this method is overriding method. Okay, this will follow all rules in order to override a method, else it will throw compile time error. So it will throw error like this method doesn't exist in super type. So what I will do is I just remove this, right? The second rule is return type can be same, like here void and here also void, or return type can be different, but there is some rule if return type is different. For return type, means like this subclass return type should be lower in hierarchy, or subclass of that return type in superclass, means like overridden method. uh, like here, if what I will do is integer. Okay, and I know that uh, look, uh, integer is not a subclass of void. Okay, that's why here's coming error. This method doesn't exist. Okay, return type is incompatible. So what I will do is, if I will make superclass as a return type, suppose object is superclass of all classes. Okay, but for simple, what I will have done is I have just okay what I have done is I just means like replace this return type as object. Now you can see this object is a superclass of this integer. So this is valid rule, means like this is valid for overriding. And third is like private, static and final method cannot override. Why we cannot override? Because if override method is private, this method is private, overridden method is private, then how we can override this method? Because according to our concept, private means that is visible to this class only. Then how we can see this in subclass? Okay, this access specifier like private, public, protected and default, I will explain you in some other tutorials. Okay, then comes final. Final method can also not be override. We cannot override final method because according to final keyword, it means its implementation is final. We cannot change its implementation. So if I will define here, then I am changing its implementation. So that is against rule. And the third one is static. If we will make it as static, then this will be restricted to only, means like this will be restricted to this instance, right? IT company, this is this class, not as object. If we are doing like this, then it is extends keyword, then it's creating this object and this object, right? So but static refers to class level only, not object level. Fine. So these are the rules. Now why it is throwing exception over here? Okay, next rule I will explain you. Mm-hmm. I will show you. There is also one rule that is like overridden method. Sorry, overriding method cannot reduce the scope. Means like suppose here it is like public. Overridden method is having public scope. We cannot reduce its scope. Like we cannot reduce to protected, default or private, right? But we can widen its scope. Suppose here it is like default scope. If we remove this, then it's default scope. And this default scope we can widen because protected is wider than that default scope. So we can widen that scope, but we cannot narrow that scope. And the other rule is like exception. Suppose if we are throwing some exception, if we throw this exception, sorry, throws exception, okay, and here we can only throw subclass of that exception, right? Means like that is lower in hierarchy. So here we can throw file not found. Suppose throws file not found exception. This is valid syntax, but we cannot. You can say we cannot widen. Means like in hierarchy, the exception which is higher in hierarchy should be in superclass. Means like this overridden method. So if I will do vice versa, okay, then this is not a valid override rule, okay. So I think this is quite clear to you guys. So the basic thumb rule you have to keep in mind is just put override annotation above this, so it will make sure that this method is getting override. It will throw compile time error if any of the overriding rule gets breaked.